Thank you, Brad, and good afternoon, everybody. I've been doing advocacy for, as many of you have, probably for all my life. And I did go to law school first. I chafe under the description as a lawyer. But it was very natural, given that background, that early in my career I was kind of drawn into advocacy-related issues. So I've been doing that for a long time. And I cannot tell you what it was like working with the 6 people in the coalition. It was the most amazing experience. I probably hung with them for about 6 months, and then I collapsed for a couple of years. But the work of the 6 of them, Roy Idelson's unbelievably prolific writing skills, unbelievable. And Stephen Reisner's courage to look someone straight in the eye in a room full of people who are hating his guts and to say, you're wrong and we're going to hold you accountable, is unsurpassed in psychology's history. And Stephen Solz, yeah, he's very organized, he's got an encyclopedic memory, he's got a huge data bank, but what I've seen in him is he's got a tremendous capacity to exercise restrained and excellent judgment in the critical times that where everybody else can lose their head, and it's extraordinary. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and I know that culture pretty well too. And when I heard that there was a lone psychologist, actually in that area, the fact that it's a female psychologist makes it a lot harder, believe me, who was challenging the Ohio State Psychology Board, the chair of the Wright State School of Professional Psychology, and filing ethics charges against him by herself. Trudy Bond is one of my great heroes and is the coal miner's daughter of Ohio as far as I am concerned. And Brad Olson, I am still trying to find an ego in Brad Olson. He is one of the most unselfish, unbelievably hardworking guys I've ever known. Now, yes. And Jean Marie Arrigo, as the profile encouraged in this, but it wasn't just what she did. Yesterday, she gets a presidential citation from the APA Council and the APA President, and she says, well, I'm touched by this, but I'd have to say I do think it's probably a ploy just to try to shut me up. So for the 6 of them, I honestly, I've never seen anything like where it was 24/7. I was on their email list forever, and it was like just around the clock. It did not stop for years and years producing documents. And the incredible thing is, for this group, if you look at the kind of scrutiny they were under, number of people there just waiting for a mistake, there was never one major factual error or embarrassment in the entire time that they worked together. And I've never seen anything like it. So we are tremendously in their debt, and I personally am just awestruck by them. It was just extraordinary. So as was said, I have been, quote, an insider at APA. I was there in the governance from 82. In 86, I passed the special assessment thing when it was mandatory and honorable, and built the practice directorate until 93, and then stayed on as a consultant to work the healthcare reform agenda for another couple of years. And at the time, I saw unbelievable things there. And I thought I saw really good people hurt. I saw tremendous amounts of money wasted. I saw a lot of dirty tricks. And I did try to tell people about this in the late 90s and early 2000. And, you know, inevitably these things are seen as someone who has a personal agenda and so on. And I'm sure there's all kinds of, someone mentioned we were accused of having a troubled childhood and being clowns. That was me they were talking about, and they were right. But the holes in our head are beside the point. The fact was, it was really bad. I never in my wildest dreams thought they would become important enough to engage in torture. And that was what I saw. So yeah, I do know how APA got the way it did. I got a clear picture of how that happened. I do know the whole cast of characters. I know Russ Newman very well. I hired Russ Newman as my deputy in 1986. Russ Newman worked for me for 7 years. He was very, very loyal. When I left, he turned and worked for Ray Fowler and was very loyal to him. The problem is that Ray and I are different as night and day. Russ is someone who will conform to the agenda he's in. I knew Deborah Donovan when she moved to D.C. And how in the hell Deborah Donovan got into the Army and got into the position she did, that's a question that really needs to be asked. The issue to explain from my perspective that's so hard to communicate is when you know the individual characters, how did they get into the slots they got? And that's the systemic picture that we have to address and have to understand. But I can talk to you for hours and hours, and I love talking about some of the vignettes, and I like the support that I get when I talk about it. Right now, there is a moment of exigency that we have to address. The APA Council of Representatives is an extraordinarily dysfunctional group. We have been sitting with them the last day and a half, and believe me, they do not get it. They don't get it. There is also a very insular, kind of pretentious quality to the governance process here. So tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, the Council of Representatives is voting on whether to implement the council referendum and whether to change the policies so that we no longer permit psychologists to engage in those type of interrogations. Will it pass? Right now, it is very, very much in doubt. In my experience, there has only been one issue where the membership actually reached out and spoke to their representatives. I'm not asking you to write. I am asking you to speak with your feet. And people need to come to the APA Council of Representatives meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. That hardly ever happens. For these people to at least see that there are people who care enough about this issue, that is the most important thing anybody can do right now. I would say it's 50-50 of whether it passes. Some would say a little less. Now, everybody, even in their leadership, is scared it won't pass because they do get it now that the media has been looking at them and talking with them about it. But please, 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 come. It's in the Canadian room on level C of the Royal York Hotel. And I'll tell you, if it weren't such a disappointing experience right now, it would be a fascinating experience for you. It is shocking the way psychologists have been doing their business. So that is the issue right now we need to ask your help on. The second issue is this is not a group, this is not just a group of people who have been complicit in evil. It's also a group that is dying. There is no leadership at the APA. I mean, we went from an organization that was tightly controlled by one man, Raymond Fowler, the CEO, until about 2002. He left the place. He hired all very weak yes people to be his staff aides, except for the legal department that he used as a political instrument. When he left, he was replaced by an extremely, very nice man who is unbelievably passive. So we have had tightly controlled, non-democratic leadership or no leadership for 30 years now. And you know, sometimes after a while, these things show up. So what happened with the torture issue, we have been running these petty advocacy initiatives on behalf of psychology out of Senator Inouye's office for 35 years. When I was there, I didn't use that office because I just thought those issues were harmless but not significant. But then we started putting people into the military, and lo and behold, they rose up through the ranks, and lo and behold, they had to exercise some judgment, and they didn't do a very good job of it. And it isn't that those people were sitting there thinking, hey, I want to go in and torture some detainees. It was they were so focused on status. It wasn't money, it was status. So focused on status that they didn't notice what the status had to do with. And it didn't matter if the status was holding a certain position in the VA, or whether the status meant being important enough to go torture detainees down in Guantanamo. That is the mindset. And as Eustace said, there is an authoritarian mindset that runs through everything at APA because of this. But that's where the problem is. But for now, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, be at the Royal Canadian York, Level C, and meet your illustrious leaders. And it will be a very sobering experience for you, but hopefully you can prop them up enough to at least lock the barn door after the horses escape. We got to at least do that, and then we got a heck of a lot of work to do about APA. So thank you.